Welcome to your broker admin, where we dive into the latest review outcomes, share practical tips in our Hump Day helpers, and feature special industry guest interviews to help you stay on top of the game. Whether you're flying solo or part of a team, we're here to help you streamline your processes and work smarter, not harder.
This week on Your Broker Admin, I'm excited to be joined by James McCracken, Principal and Founder of the Successful Advisor, in the YBA Chat Room. James will share insights into his role as a broker business coach and how support structures benefit both brokers and their support teams. But before we jump into that, here's your weekly bonus history bite. On this day in history, March the 25th, way back in 421, the City of Venice was founded. And yes, apparently it was noon on a Friday, just in case we were wondering. Then in 1996, the Comet C 1996 B2 Hyakutake approaches within 0.1018 AUs of Earth. For those of us, like me, who have no idea what that even means, it's about 15 million kilometres. To quote a famous line, missed us by that much. After my chat with James, we'll finish up with the reviews wrap-up, covering the week ending the 20th of March 2026. There are plenty of savings, more lending opportunities, and a slightly concerning conversation with one of the review clients. I'm Rob Cummings. Thanks for tuning in. And let's jump straight into the chat with James. Hello everyone, and welcome to our regular guest chat on Your Broker Admin. Here in the YBA Chat Room with me today is James McCracken, mortgage broker business coach with the Successful Advisor. James, welcome to Your Broker Admin, and thank you kindly for joining me today.
Thank you, Rob, for the introduction and the invitation, an opportunity to share, hopefully, some value with your audience. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. And based on sort of our discussions over the time, I think you will add some value. Now, before we get started, there's just some quick background on yourself that I wanted to share for the benefit of the listeners.
Yes.
Now, from my research, you have been operating as a business coach to mortgage brokers since 2012. And prior to that, you were the National Strategic Coaching Manager with Sensors. So you've clearly been in this game for a little while.
Yeah, I've been having a crack for a fair stint. I think my first coaching foray was in a corporate capacity. It was 2005 when I was doing some version of coaching with peers, and then I went into sales management, where obviously that's a reasonably core function or component of the role. I transitioned out of sales management into a very coaching and training specific role that was dedicated to that. And then the opportunity came up to essentially head up that team, which is what that role was. So effectively, the people underneath me were a variety of different coaches and trainers and other professional development people within the Census group. And I stayed there for several years. And the only reason I left, frankly, was partly to do with wanting to run my own business, and secondly, because the several business units, including HR and finance and then training, had been absorbed from Census back into Telstra. And so I was very fortunate to get a golden handshake.
Lovely. We all love those.
Yeah, it was a nice way to start the business with a little bit of certainty behind you.
Yeah, well, that's right. I think we're all a little bit apprehensive when you come out of somewhere working in a corporate environment, PAYG, and then go to work for yourself. There's always a little bit of trepidation about that, isn't there?
Yeah, correct. Well, I felt like I would probably be making excuses for why I couldn't go and why now wasn't quite the right time. So I like in some respects that my hand was forced, because it took that decision away from me.
Yes. Yeah, I think that happens a lot. Now, there's something else I wanted to share as well, and I wanted to ask you about. So I have it on a good authority from a reliable source that you're actually a keen golfer. Is that correct?
I'm glad you used the word keen, not good. So yes, keen. Still working on how good I am though.
That's all right. Now, this same source let it slip that something about you and a group of colleagues went on what was supposed to be an overseas training trip that somehow turned into a golf trip. Is that how accurate is that?
Well, I would refer to it as a professional development series where the on-course conversations and interaction is forms part of a broader networking opportunity and collaboration with peers. How about that as a response?
Right, very good, very good. So you're not going to take that one on notice?
Well, they're great events. I've certainly had more than one person who have been in the industry for 15 to 20 plus years let me know that in their opinion, they think that these are single-handedly the best events they've ever attended as mortgage brokers. So I think that's complimentary, and we weren't necessarily aiming for them to reach that status, if you like, but the fact that they have in the eyes of the attendees is really encouraging because they obviously have a great experience. They've coming back in some cases for the third consecutive year. In fact, most people who will be on our next event will be the core group, if you like. And yeah, I frankly really enjoy hosting them.
All right. Excellent. Oh, well, if you can get away with it, why not?
Exactly right.
Now, obviously, I've got you here today to talk about your coaching services and working with brokers. I'm just curious to understand, and I'm sure as my listeners are you able to provide us with a brief overview? What it is you actually do as a coach, and how does it assist brokers within their own business?
Yeah, I can. And I think the simplest way to break this down is to look at the outcomes people are after, because our coaching service is really based on results and outcomes. So nobody's coming to me to say, hey, could you please give me more things to do? I'm not busy enough. It's more a case of what specific tangible outcomes are they looking to achieve. And in the case of most of our clients, it's most or all of the following 4 areas, which is increasing their settlement volumes, which is therefore increasing their upfronts, growing their loan book and their trail revenue, it's increasing their business value, and lastly, it's about giving them more time back in their day, the week, and their life. And depending on where they're at in their own broking and life journey will determine which ones of those are most important, meaning that in some cases, people might already be having good volumes, but they might be churning their book. They now want to add more value to the book and therefore add a higher multiple on their business. Some people categorically are printing money in terms of doing a phenomenal job, but they're also heading towards an early grave or an early divorce. And so how can they essentially write the same volume, but do it in substantially less time in order to essentially have a quality of life rather than their business run their life? So it depends on each person as to what the outcomes are, but we'll essentially work backwards from those outcomes that each person wants, understand where they are in their journey, and then put a plan in place for them and give them the clarity, the know-how, the structure, the tools, the confidence to implement those actions according to their constraints, according to their goals, and therefore help achieve the tangible, measurable results that are important to each person.
Yeah, okay. So would it be fair to say it's kind of more akin to a bespoke type service that you're offering?
Yeah, it's a hybrid. So in our core service, which is Ultimate Broker, it's by definition a hybrid service of group and one-to-one coaching. The reason we do the group coaching is partly because it's an opportunity for peers to share what's working amongst each other. Case in point is one of our clients uses ChatGPT better than most people I know. And he's taken some tasks that literally would take certain brokers 4 hours to do. And I know that because other brokers have shared that's how long it takes, where he might do something in 5 minutes with the use of GPT. So, and then we'll not just talk about how he's done that. He'll actually then provide that specific tool for others to then use to optimize or enhance parts of what they do. So the value for brokers isn't just around engaging with a coach only. It's about essentially being able to cherry pick what's the best things from what others are doing, implement the things that are most relatable, because not everything that everyone else does is necessarily right for any given business, but take the best of the things that matter, get the level of accountability from the coach, the clarity, the structure, the know-how, and then again, go about biting the elephant one bite at a time to make progress in a sustainable, manageable way. So in some cases with high-performing brokers, the biggest thing they need to do firstly is clear up time, because lead flow is not their problem. It's really about how do I optimize what we do, get more time back in my day or my life, and then give them the breathing space to have a bit of respite, reduce a bit of stress, and then maybe the capacity to then allocate some of that energy into other activities, whether that's to do with scaling the business, streamlining it, making it more profitable, and so forth.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. And from my experience, and you would have seen this as well across many brokers, one of the things that brokers often underestimate is how much time they actually spend in the file process. So I'm curious, in your opinion, at what point should a broker start to think about themselves as the person who doesn't do everything and more as the person who leads the process?
I would say at the moment they register for their Cert 4. So, and that might sound a little bit flippant to say that, Rob, but the reality is that they're running a business, and I've literally, even as soon as this week, had people say to me who are 2 years in, say words like, "I'm not really a business owner." It's like, well, yes, you are. So as a business owner, you're the head of the orchestra. You're not every instrument in the orchestra. So you need to understand metaphorically, what strings to pull. Maybe a bad pun there. But yeah, understanding where your time, energy, and effort is best allocated. And for virtually every broker, that's front of house. It's around client management. It's around deal structuring. It's around giving advice. It's around winning the business. It's around sourcing new opportunities. And most of the rest can be delegated in some capacity. And so, not that there's a one size fits all, but the sooner you start thinking about that and then giving yourself the capacity to focus on the things that you enjoy doing, that you're good at doing, that generally make money for the business, chances are that you're going to skew towards having a more sustainable, profitable, valuable business rather than one where you are the entirety of the business.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned there about structures and increasing settlements and stuff like that. From your perspective, how does implementing a support structure potentially impact a broker's capacity to grow their settlements? And can you actually put a quantitative number on it?
Yes, you can put a quantitative number on it. I'll answer that part first. So we have a benchmarking report in my business, which we essentially give people a questionnaire. They respond to the questionnaire, and on the basis of their responses, it will tally up how much time that broker spends on their file. So whether they're a single operator, meaning with no support staff at all, versus the majority of them that we work with, which is where they have one or more support staff. And what it will show is total handling time on a file. It will show what percentage of that time is the broker's. It will show what actual hours of the time or the total time is the broker's. And then we also have a formula to work out on the basis of your current handling time on a file and the amount of hours you work in a year. What would it look like in terms of total upper end of capacity if you maintained a certain type of work ethic? And so that allows us to forecast what would be I don't always think it's a straight line to say, well, if we doubled your volumes, then it's easy for me to say that someone who's doing 100 files could easily do 200 files because mathematically that may be the case, but that doesn't necessarily take into account certain other variables such as mental bandwidth, cognitive capacity, etc. Whereby if you're doing twice as much, chances are that you may run the risk of burnout. So the tool doesn't necessarily take that into account, but it does at least provide scope and insight around where you are, where you're potentially falling significantly short, which frankly is a lot of people, and therefore what does that potential capacity look like? And therefore, where are those gaps and opportunities, such as how much time you're spending on the front end of a file, which is, for most brokers, much longer than it needs to be. And therefore, if you freed up that extra time, what does that look like in terms of where you could reallocate that, whether it's to do with generating more files for yourself, potentially even building out a team and scaling through other people, and therefore having the means to, quite frankly, grow the business fairly substantially.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And obviously there are a number of different support team structures available. And what I mean by that is you've obviously got things like you can have someone on site as an assistant, you can have an offshore VA, or you can outsource. Do you have any particular leaning towards one over the other?
No, in simple terms, I don't. So I think that all of them play roles and they all can add value. And I think it's about a broker understanding what they feel will resonate or work most effectively for them, because as we'd appreciate, some people are very amicable and amiable or extroverted, whereby they tend to get their energy around other people. And so they're probably more inclined to have someone in the office because there's just a preference to have camaraderie and someone quite physically near them in order to not just provide support, but also be someone that can give them a sense of enjoyment rather than feeling lonely in the role.
Yeah. Well, actually, probably a very good point, because it can be, particularly as a solo broker, it can be fairly isolating, can't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there are definitely people out there. I mean, it's certainly not something that's unique to broking, of course, but in the broking industry, absolutely, that can be the case. And so therefore that on-site person clearly plays a role, or that on-site option. Similarly is for some people, they would quite understandably look at the pricing of an offshore supplier, consider those options from an affordability point of view and potentially from a convenience point of view. And they may also be planning up for a couple of things, which is where they may look at an offshore person to do a certain function, and then maybe an onshore to fulfill another role within the business based on the type of skill set that they need. And so, and then there's obviously services like yours where that's a great offering, because I would go so far as to say it's lower risk and simpler to implement in the grand scheme of things, Rob, to engage a service like yours. And as we both know, we've worked with mutual brokers where they've engaged your help and ours, and where they've been working with you for several years, and they like the ability to dial up and down that service on an as-need basis. So I think all of these offerings can accommodate different people that have different either financial needs or business needs or personality needs, and it's about knowing what will likely resonate best with each individual. But also ideally working to a plan too, so that you're not just haphazardly sort of shooting from the hip in terms of what you think you'll do. It's actually trying to do so intentionally in order to achieve an intended outcome.
I agree, yeah. And yes, we do work with brokers. In fact, we probably work with a number of brokers who've got a bit of, a blend of either or all three of them, from that point of view. And some of them use it as a continuity plan. So, if one falls over, I've got a backup here. So, we see a little bit of that.
Thanks for listening to Your Broker Admin, and hope you're enjoying this week's guest interview. Got feedback, questions, or a topic you'd like covered? Head to the Contact the Show page. The link's in the episode notes. If the link's not clickable in your player, just copy it from the show notes or head to the episode description on your phone. And if you're loving the show, a rating on Apple Podcasts, a review on Podchaser, or a follow on Spotify helps others find it. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn to keep the conversation going. And now, back to the show.
Yeah, and I've seen that too. And I've worked with brokers where in some cases they might have different offshore suppliers even in Asia. So one in Philippines, one in India, and then an onshore person who provides oversight for all of the offshore team. And then you've still got the broker who's running the show. And so, does that mean that model's better or worse? It doesn't mean either. It just means that there's different flexibility out there as to how every broker can structure things, which also goes back to why our coaching service is bespoke, to use that word, in the sense that people ask me sometimes, hey, can you give me the best practice loan process? And to a degree, I'll say, well, I sort of can't, because what works extremely well in one organization might be very different to the tech that you use, the customers you work with, the personality that they have, the way they run their interviews versus you, the resourcing and so forth. And therefore, we can't just copy and paste their thing into yours and vice versa. It's got to be a combination of optimizing yours rather than just trying to run with someone else's.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's very much a horses for courses type arrangement, isn't it?
Correct. And look, I think most people get it because I'll usually say to them something to the effect of, it's the same as every client that comes to you wants money or wants to, improve their financial situation typically. But in order to do that, nobody's got exactly the same scenario. Yes, you might place them with the same bank. Yes, there might be similar LVRs, but as to how you structure the deal, well, that's going to look different for every single person. And therefore we work in a similar way, but we do it with you and other brokers rather than you do it with consumers, for example.
Yeah, okay. And you mentioned earlier about obviously support structures help free up time and add value to the business. But beyond freeing up time, how do certain support structures like loan processing, settlements, and even things like client services who, for example, who do client reviews and retention strategies, potentially influence the long-term value and sustainability of a mortgage broking business?
Well, there's not too many brokers I know that would not want to take a month off, leave their laptop in the office and their phone in the office and still have things tick along in their absence. And in fact, going back to our golf conversation from earlier, one broker explicitly mentioned that he had an aha moment when another broker who was at that event said, look, I've settled 5 deals this week and I haven't picked up the phone. I haven't opened my laptop. And so really, who doesn't want that? I'm not saying to not call clients at settlement, but what I am saying is if you can have the business function in your absence, or you can build a level of resilience and sustainability in how you set things up from a systems and staffing and structure point of view. I don't have a specific number to say, well, that will increase the multiple value of your business by an extra 50%. But it certainly makes it more attractive in the sense that when it's been put to market as a going concern, you can either sell a business, not just a trail book, and that generally does attract a higher multiple value. And it's usually more attractive in the eyes of a purchaser if the business functions through other things rather than just the broker's name and their hard work, which I'm not saying the broker shouldn't be putting in hard work. I'm just saying that if you have these other complementary components, it will add value to the organization and it will make it more attractive in the future.
Yeah, okay. And would it be fair to say within those support structures, one of the key aspects of those being successful is the actual staff that are filling those support roles?
Well, I'd like to think so, because if we looked at it from another perspective, if we flipped that around and said if the purchaser is looking at the business and they ask the outgoing broker, what do you do? And their answer is everything. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's not particularly attractive, I wouldn't have thought, in the eyes of a purchaser, to think that they're getting something that's been done solely on the heavy lifting of an individual. Whereas if the purchaser was look at that and say, well, what role do you play? Well, I do I generate the leads, I do the initial client interview, I deal with the deal structure, and my team does the rest. And I pick up the phone, I call it settlement to say congratulations, and maybe ask for a Google review. Well, that I would have thought would be a pretty attractive asset and proposition for most people who are looking to purchase a business, and therefore the support role clearly plays a very important part in making that valuable, making it sustainable, and probably also contributing towards making it profitable. So whilst there's a cost to the support staff, it's typically a whole lot cheaper than the hourly rate that the broker will place on themselves to do that work.
Absolutely. So, hourly rate of a broker, one would think, is going to be far higher than any support staff that they're employing.
Yeah, well, I've got a tool that can help work that out. I mean,
okay,
not that we need to bang on about it, but it's a pretty simple tool. It's in my eyes, and people could do this math for themselves. The tool essentially says, well, what was your volumes over the last 12 months? How many hours did you work? Therefore, your volumes will equal what your upfront was on those volumes, and divide that by the number of hours you worked, and that's an estimation of your hourly rate. Now, we understand it's not perfect because there's clawbacks and there's native offset, etc.
Yeah.
But in most cases, in almost every case, that is either a little to a lot lower than what they would like their hourly rate to be. And in some cases, they could earn a better hourly rate with a whole lot less stress if they were in a corporate role, which means that you either need to fix this up or consider a career change, because why do this for cents on the dollar and all the stress that comes with it? So, and the best hourly rate I've seen was someone that was earning about $550 an hour, which I should think was pretty reasonable. In fact, it was a reflection of how good he was at his job, and that person was and is not only an outstanding broker, he's an exceptional business owner as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's right. I guess that's a big difference in being a mortgage broker and actually understanding how to run a successful business.
Correct.
Obviously support structures and support staff, having a well-honed structure that works well and sort of is well set up, would it be fair to say that actually provides some comfort or some benefits to the support staff themselves working in that environment?
Look, it's a really good point. I appreciate you making that, because the short answer is yes, and clearly it sets them up for success. I mean, if they know what they're doing, what success looks like in their role, how their role contributes towards the broader objective of the organization, and there's a sense of purpose, there's a sense of clarity as to where we're going as a team, and there's other intangibles, or maybe you could call them tangibles, like when a Google review comes through and it doesn't just say the broker's name, it says, when I worked with Mary and her team of, Caitlin and Belinda, that's absolutely an inclusive comment, and no doubt contributes towards recognition and validation that the team is doing a great job, not just the broker.
Yeah.
And I also think it's important that not just the tangible structures within the business contribute towards employee engagement and performance, but also some intangibles too, such as having maybe a monthly objective that we want to achieve. And if we do, this is how we celebrate. Or if we meet this 6-month objective, everyone's going to the annual conference. I'll foot the bill for the airfares, the accommodation, the conference itself, and we'll all have a great time together. So I think there's a range of different ways to recognise and reward staff for their contribution, which is significant to the performance of the business.
Yeah. Okay. Very valid point. So that's actually been really insightful, James. And I'm glad we actually got to have this conversation.
Thank you.
What I want to ask you now is that, given what you've just spoke about and what you do, how can anybody who wants to find out more detail about your services and how it might help their individual business, how do they get in contact with you?
It's just the easiest way is to go onto our website, which, of course, the word advisor, I naturally chose, the unusual spelling. So it's The Successful Advisor, where advisor is ADVISER, of course. But on the website, it provides sufficient insight as to what our core services are and the opportunity to organise what we'd refer to as a deal flow call. So where my growth advisor, she'll herself a broker of 17 years, will seek to understand more about where someone is, where they could get to, and give them some suggestions and ideas as to how they can get there. Or give them some tools, resources, training, or if they think that we can help, then maybe organise a conversation with me as well. But either way is they'll leave that conversation with, at the very least, some trainings or tools to assist them on their journey.
Okay, that's great. I will actually share that web address you just gave. I'll put it into the show notes for the episode. So if any listeners who want to sort of find the link, they can just go straight to the show notes and it'll be in there. Having said that, thank you again for joining me today, James. Much appreciated.
Well, I appreciate it too, Rob, and I hope that the audience has received some value and it gives them some ideas, some inspiration, and some options as to how they can take their business forward and reach the next level of progress and success for themselves.
I have no doubt that will be the case. Thank you again, and we'll finish up there, James.
Cheers.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye.
In this week's reviews wrap-up, we unpacked outcomes from loan reviews completed during the week ending the 20th of March 2026. I thought last week was a great result, but we did even better than that this week, with another 12 completed reviews receiving rate reductions, this time producing a substantial $16,100 in interest savings. On top of that, we had another 3 lending opportunities amounting to almost $4 million. The big winner this week, from an interest savings perspective, was a Better Choice customer where we secured a rate reduction of 0.93% across their 2 loans, providing them with almost $10,000 in interest savings. The starting rates on both of those loans before our review was pretty awful. And whilst they can potentially still do better, it does afford them some immediate cost relief at least with everything else that's going on. I'll talk more about this in my review conversation piece. There was also a good-sized interest saving for a NAB customer where we obtained a 0.2% discount, providing them with about $2,000 in savings. Additionally, we had some further wins from that purchase loan book I commented on last week, with more likely to come based on what we've seen so far. On the lending opportunities front, it was somewhat similar to last week, only different numbers. One was for $70,000 to install a pool at their home. One was an internal refinance of $950,000 after their review outcome with CBA. And the other was a development property purchase. They had done one previously where they bought, subdivided and built 2 townhouses. One of those has already been sold and settled, with the other now sold and waiting for settlement. The client is looking to do something along the same lines. An estimate of the funding required is around the $3 million mark. This also happens to be a client in the broker's newly acquired loan book. Now this week, we'll take a look at just one of the client conversations we had from the reviews. The clients are a self-employed couple in regional Victoria. They have 2 loans through Better Choice which settled back in 2023. One is owner-occupied and the other in an interest-only investment for a property up on the river. The rate review returned a significant rate reduction, as mentioned earlier, delivering them almost $10,000 in interest savings. First off, we spoke with the husband. He advised business is slow at the moment, not happy at all about current fuel prices, stating it wasn't that long ago that unleaded was $1.51 and now it's up to $2.84. They buy 500 litres of fuel at a time. We spoke about the rate review and the reductions achieved. He immediately suggested it was better that we speak with the other half. So we then rang and spoke with the wife. She was amazed at the rate reduction. Didn't really know what to do, but super happy that we have looked after her. Apparently, they used a Better Choice at the time as they had some credit card debt and the latest tax returns hadn't been completed, so they had to utilise an accountant's declaration as evidence of income. The first half of this year has been good, but things had quietened down since January. They used the property on the river as a holiday home and not a rental as she loves it up there. A local real estate agent has told them they could get $700 a week for it as a rental. Some quick calculations worked out the rental income would be more than the interest-only loan payments. She is very tempted, but the backyard needs to be done first. They will wait until the end of the year to see what the financial year ends up looking like, and then perhaps contact a broker to discuss. It was a fairly lengthy call across the 2 of them, but they were thankful for our efforts and the outcome. Another good week of wins from a broker perspective, but there are definitely some signs that things are getting tough out there for your average punter. Rising inflation in general, combined with increases in fuel prices and interest rates, are really starting to bite. If you are serious about relationships, then this is a critical time to keep in touch with your clients.
Thanks for listening to your broker admin. If you've got feedback, questions, or a topic you'd like covered on the show, you can now send it through via our Contact the Show page. The link is in the episode notes. If the link's not clickable in your player, just copy it from the show notes or head to the episode description on your phone. A rating on Apple Podcasts, a review on Podchaser, or a follow on Spotify all help the show reach the people it's built for. This has been your broker admin, for those who like their process neat.